Have you ever wondered how far a son can go in his ingratitude? How much he can hurt the heart of a mother who gave everything for him? My story will show you that there is no limit to the coldness of a selfish heart. And what happened to me on the saddest day of my life will shock you as much as it shocked me. If you enjoy real stories that touch the heart, subscribe to the channel and leave your like because what I'm about to tell you really happened and will make you rethink many things about family and gratitude. My name is Dorothy, I am 67 years old and I live in a small town in rural Kansas. For 40 long and happy years I was married to Robert, the man of my life, my companion in all hours. Together we raised our only son Michael, who is 25 years old today. Throughout my entire life I dedicated myself completely to my family. I worked as a secretary at a local school to help with expenses, but my true calling was always being a mother and wife. Robert was an electrician, a hard-working and honest man who never denied anything to Michael. We saved every penny to give our son the best possible education. We paid for his college, bought his first car, helped with his wedding when he married Sarah 2 years ago. We were a united family, or at least I believed we were. 6 months ago our life changed completely. Robert began to feel chest pains and shortness of breath. At first we thought it was just fatigue from work, after all he was always very hardworking. But the pains got worse, and when I finally convinced him to go to the doctor, we received the most devastating news of our lives. Lung cancer in advanced stage. The doctor was direct with us. He said Robert would have between 3 to 6 months to live, maybe a little more if he responded well to treatment. I felt as if the ground had disappeared from under my feet. 40 years of marriage, an entire life built together, and suddenly I had to accept that all of this would come to an end in a few months. Robert was brave, braver than me. He held my hand in that office and said, "Dorothy, we are going to face this together as we have always faced everything." But I saw the fear in his eyes, just as he must have seen mine. The following months were the most difficult of my life. I became a full-time nurse, caring for my husband with all the love and dedication I had. Robert could no longer work, so our income became very reduced. I took leave from school to care for him, and we basically lived on our small retirement and some savings we had put aside. During this difficult period, Michael seemed to be by our side. He came to visit us at least twice a week, always asking if we needed anything. Sometimes he brought medicines, other times he just stayed talking with his father about sports or work. Sarah, his wife, was also kind, although I noticed she didn't feel very comfortable with the disease situation. I clung to these visits from my son as if they were a gift from heaven. Seeing Michael there, worried about his father taking care of us, gave me strength to continue. I thought, at least when Robert leaves I won't be completely alone. My son is here, he loves me and will take care of me. Robert fought bravely against cancer for 5 months. There were better days and worse days, but he never lost his dignity or hope. In the last weeks, when he was already very weak, he called me for a serious conversation. "Dorothy," he said with that weak but still loving voice, "I need you to promise me something. When I leave you need to continue living. Don't close yourself off from the world. Michael will take care of you, I'm sure of that." I held his hand, already so thin and cold, and promised I would try to be strong. "He's a good boy, Robert. We raised a good son. He won't abandon me." Robert died on a Tuesday morning at home the way he wanted. I was holding his hand when he took his last breath. It was the most painful moment of my life, but there was also a strange peace in it, knowing that he had departed without suffering, surrounded by love. Michael arrived half an hour after I called him. He found me still sitting beside the bed, crying and caressing his father's face. My son hugged me tight and cried with me. At that moment I felt that I wasn't alone, that even in the deepest pain, I still had my son by my side. "Mom," he said with tears in his eyes, "I'll take care of everything. You don't need to worry about anything. Leave all the funeral preparations to me. Dad deserves a dignified farewell." In the following hours Michael really took charge of everything. He called the funeral home, spoke with our church pastor, organized the details of the wake and burial. I was so devastated by grief that I could barely think straight, so having my son taking care of everything was an immense relief. During the 2 days between Robert's death and the wake, Michael was present all the time. He slept at home to keep me company, cooked for me when I didn't have strength even to eat, answered calls from friends and relatives who learned the news. Sarah also helped, organizing the flowers and taking care of the list of people who would come to the wake. I looked at my son during those days and thought, Robert was right. Michael is a good boy. Even in pain, he's here taking care of me. No matter how much I suffer from losing my husband, at least I know I'm not alone in the world. The night before the wake, Michael sat with me in the living room where Robert and I used to spend our evenings watching television together. The house was strangely quiet without his breathing, without the sound of the television he always left on low. "Mom," Michael said, "I know tomorrow is going to be very difficult for you. But I want you to know that I'll be by your side the whole time. Dad was a wonderful father, and he deserves for us to be united in this moment." I held my son's hand and thanked God for having raised such a good boy. "Michael, I don't know what I would do without you these days. You have been my strength." He smiled sadly and gave me a kiss on the forehead. "That's what family is for, Mom. To be together in difficult times and happy times." That night, for the first time since Robert died, I managed to sleep a few hours. I was certain that, however painful the wake might be, I wouldn't be alone. My son would be there by my side, supporting me as he had done in recent days. How wrong I was. How I couldn't imagine that the greatest pain of my life was still to come, and that it wouldn't come from my husband's death, but from my own son's betrayal. The day of the wake dawned cloudy in our small Kansas town. I woke up early with that strange feeling that something important was about to happen, but at the same time with an emptiness in my chest that seemed to have no end. It was the last day I would see my Robert's face before he was buried forever. Michael arrived early at home as he had promised. He was wearing a dark suit, with a tie that I myself had given him as a gift on the last Father's Day. He looked like a responsible man, a dedicated son who was there to support his mother in the most difficult moment. "Good morning, Mom," he said, giving me a hug. "How are you feeling?" "I'm nervous, son," I replied honestly. "I don't know if I have the strength to see so many people, to receive all the condolences. It's as if the pain becomes more real, you know?" Michael nodded with understanding. "I understand, Mom. But remember that all these people love Dad. They're going there to honor him and to support you. And I'll be by your side the whole time." Those words gave me the comfort I needed. We had breakfast together, mostly in silence, each lost in our own thoughts about Robert. Then Michael helped me choose the outfit for the wake. A navy blue dress that Robert always said looked beautiful on me. Around 10 in the morning, we left home to go to the funeral home. The wake would begin at noon, but I wanted to arrive early to have a few moments alone with my husband before people started to arrive. When I saw Robert in the coffin, dressed in the suit he wore at our wedding 40 years ago, I broke down. Even knowing that he had passed away, even having seen him take his last breath, seeing him there so quiet, so different from the man full of life I knew, was devastating. Michael held me while I cried. "Easy, Mom. He's at peace now. He's not suffering anymore." We spent an hour there, just the two of us with Robert. I talked to him as if he were alive, told him I was afraid of being alone, that I would miss him very much. Michael also talked to his father, thanking him for everything he had taught, promising that he would take good care of me. At that moment, watching my son speak lovingly about his deceased father, I thought, how silly of me to be afraid of being alone. I have Michael. He's so much like his father, so responsible and caring. Noon arrived and people began to show up. Friends from the school where I worked, Robert's coworkers, neighbors, distant relatives. The funeral home quickly filled up. Robert was a very beloved person in our community, and seeing so many people there to say goodbye to him moved me deeply. Michael stayed by my side during the first 2 hours, introducing people I didn't know, thanking the condolences on my behalf when I couldn't speak from crying so much, making sure I drank water and didn't feel sick. Around 2 in the afternoon, when the movement was more intense, Michael's cell phone rang. He looked at the screen and frowned. "Excuse me, Mom, it's Sarah. It must be something important." He stepped away a few meters and answered the call. I continued receiving greetings from people, but with one ear attentive to what Michael was saying. I couldn't hear everything, but I caught some words. "Now? Today? But it's my father's wake." When he came back near me, I noticed he had a strange expression, as if he were torn between two important things. "Was it Sarah?" I asked. "Is Mom? She's at home, not feeling very well. I think the emotion of these days affected her too." I found it strange because Sarah had been at the funeral home in the morning, arranging the flowers, and seemed to be fine. But I didn't question it. After all, each person reacts differently to death and grief. Around 3 o'clock, Michael's phone rang again. This time he didn't even step away to answer. "Hello, Mrs. Margaret," he said, and I recognized the name of Sarah's mother. Yes, she told me. What do you mean, tonight? But Mrs. Margaret, you know today is my father's wake. I felt a tightness in my chest. Even in the middle of my pain, even surrounded by people offering support, something told me that a storm was approaching. Michael continued the conversation. I understand it's important to you, but, hey, let me see what I can do. I'll call you back. He hung up the phone and stood still for a few seconds as if thinking about something very serious. I approached him. Michael, is everything okay? He looked at me with an expression I had never seen before. It was as if he were measuring words, calculating what to say. Mom, my mother-in-law called. She wants Sarah and me to go have dinner at her house tonight. It seems it's something important related to the family. I felt as if I had been punched in the stomach. Dinner? Today. Michael, today is your father's wake. How are you going to have dinner at your mother-in-law's house on the day your father is being waked? I know, Mom, I know it seems strange. But Mrs. Margaret said it's something very important that can't wait. Something about Sarah's grandfather's inheritance that has to be resolved today. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Michael, your father is there in that coffin. All these people came here to pay tribute to him and to support me. And you're thinking about leaving to have dinner with your mother-in-law. Mom, it's not exactly like that. I didn't say I was going. I'm just thinking about what to do. Sarah is feeling sick, and if it really is something urgent about inheritance. Michael, I interrupted, my voice trembling with emotion, inheritances can wait. Your father died on Monday. Today is Thursday. How many times in your entire life will you wake your father? Today, son. Snow. And I need you here. He lowered his eyes, and I realized he was really considering leaving. My own son was considering abandoning me at his father's wake to go have dinner at his mother-in-law's house. Mom, I understand your position. But think with me. Dad is already gone. He's not here anymore. And if Sarah's family really needs me today, if it's something that could affect our future. I couldn't contain my tears anymore. Michael, are you serious? Dad is already gone? Is that how you talk about your father on the day of his wake? People around began to notice our argument. Some moved away discreetly, others pretended not to be paying attention. I felt ashamed, but at the same time an indignation I had never felt in my life. Mom, lower your voice. People are looking. And you think I care what people are thinking? My son is telling me he's going to abandon me at his own father's wake to go have dinner with his mother-in-law. Michael looked around, visibly embarrassed. It's not abandonment, Mom. I've been here all day. I organized everything, took care of everything. If I leave for a few hours. A few hours? I practically screamed. Michael, the wake ends at 10 at night. If you go to dinner now, you're not coming back today. You know that. He remained silent for a few seconds, and I could see the internal struggle happening in his head. On one side, the mother devastated by the loss of her husband, in the most difficult moment of her life. On the other, the mother-in-law with a demand he considered important. Mom, he said finally, if I go, I'll be back soon. I'll have a quick dinner and come back. Michael, you know Mrs. Margaret. You know how she is. If you go there today, she won't let you leave early. And even if she did, even if you came back in 2 hours, what will people think? What am I going to tell anyone who asks where you are? You tell the truth. That I had to resolve an important family matter. I felt as if I no longer knew my own son. Family? Michael, I am your family. Your mother is your family. Your father, who is in that coffin, was your family. Sarah and her mother-in-law are your wife's family. Mom, when we get married, families come together. Sarah's family is my family too. At that moment, I knew I had lost my son. Not to death as I had lost my husband. But to something worse. To ingratitude, to selfishness, to lack of character. Fine, Michael, I said, wiping away my tears. If you want to go, go. But know that if you leave now, if you leave me alone at your father's wake to go have dinner at your mother-in-law's house, you're going to show me exactly what kind of son I raised. He looked me in the eyes for the first time since the conversation began. For a second, I thought he was going to change his mind, that he was going to realize the gravity of what he was about to do. But then his phone rang again. It was Sarah. Hi, honey, he answered. No, I haven't left yet. I know your mother is waiting. Hey, I'm coming. He hung up and looked at me with an expression that tried to be apologetic, but was actually one of determination. Mom, I have to go. But I'll be back, I promise. And there, in front of all those people who came to pay tribute to my husband, in front of friends and family who had known Michael since he was little, my son turned his back on me and left. Let that resonate in the minds of you who are mothers. On the day of his own father's wake, my son abandoned me to answer a call from his mother-in-law. If you have children and are watching this story, leave a like if you think what Michael did was wrong. I want to know if I'm crazy for feeling so hurt, or if any mother would feel the same way I did at that moment. I stood there in the middle of that funeral home full of people, feeling more alone than I had ever felt in my entire life. Not even when Robert took his last breath did I feel so abandoned, because at that moment I still had hope in my son. Mrs. Henderson, our neighbor for over 20 years, came to me with tears in her eyes. Dorothy dear, where did Michael go? Is everything okay? I didn't know what to say. How do you explain to people that your son left his father's wake to have dinner with his mother-in-law? How do you say that without dying of shame? He had to resolve an urgent matter, I managed to say. But dear, what could be more urgent than being here with you today? I had no answer for that. Because there was no answer. There was no emergency, no urgency, no justification for what Michael had done to me. The hours passed slowly. People continued to arrive to offer their condolences, to share memories of Robert. But I could barely concentrate on what they were saying. My mind was divided between the pain of losing my husband and the disbelief at my son's attitude. Every time someone asked about Michael, I felt a piece of my heart break. He'll be back soon, I would say. But deep down I knew he wouldn't come back. Deep down, I knew that my son had chosen his mother-in-law's dinner over his mother's pain. Around 6 in the evening, Pastor Williams, who would conduct the burial service the next day, approached me. Dorothy, I'm so sorry for your loss. Robert was a good man, a pillar of our community. And Michael? Where is Michael? I wanted to talk to him about tomorrow's service. I looked at the pastor, this man who had baptized Michael, who had seen him grow up in our church, who had married him to Sarah. How could I tell him that Michael wasn't there because he had gone to have dinner with his in-laws? He had something important to resolve, Pastor. He should be back soon. Pastor Williams frowned. Something more important than his father's wake? I had no answer. Because we both knew there was nothing more important than that moment. As night fell, I realized that Michael really wasn't coming back. He had abandoned me completely. He had left me alone to deal with the pain, the people, the questions, the shame. At that moment, I understood that I had lost 2 men in 1 week. I had lost Robert to death, and I had lost Michael to something much worse. To the lack of love, respect, and consideration for the mother who gave birth to him. But the worst was yet to come. The worst was discovering that this dinner wasn't just a simple family gathering, but something much more calculated and cruel than I could have imagined. The wake continued without Michael. Every minute that passed without my son returning was like a knife twisting in my heart. I kept looking at the door, hoping to see him walk through it, hoping he would realize his mistake and come back to be by my side. But Michael never came back. At 8 o'clock in the evening, 2 hours before the wake would end, I was exhausted. The combination of grief from losing Robert and the shock of Michael's abandonment was more than my body could handle. Mrs. Henderson noticed I was pale and shaky. Dorothy dear, you need to sit down. You look like you're about to faint. He was right. I felt dizzy, weak. The funeral director brought me a chair and a glass of water. As I sat there trying to gather strength to get through the last 2 hours, I heard something that made my blood freeze. 2 women from our church, Mrs. Patterson and Mrs. Ellis, were talking in low voices near the flower arrangements. They didn't know I could hear them. Did you see that Michael left? Whispered Mrs. Patterson. Yes, and do you know where he went? Replied Mrs. Ellis. My daughter works at the restaurant downtown. She saw Michael and Sarah there with Sarah's whole family. They were celebrating something. There was a cake and everything. A celebration? On the day of his father's wake. Mrs. Patterson sounded shocked. That's not even the worst part, continued Mrs. Ellis. My daughter said they had reserved the whole back room of the restaurant. This wasn't something last minute. This was planned. I felt the world spinning around me. A celebration? With a cake? Planned in advance? This wasn't an urgent family dinner about inheritance. This was a party. A party that my son had planned while his father was dying, while I was suffering. I got up from the chair so abruptly that I knocked over the glass of water. Mrs. Henderson rushed to help me. Dorothy, what happened? You're white as a sheet. I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe. I felt like I was drowning in my own pain and disbelief. My son hadn't just left me alone at his father's wake for a simple dinner. He had left me for a celebration, a party that he had known about and planned while I was taking care of his dying father. I need some air, I managed to say. Mrs. Henderson helped me walk to the funeral home's small garden. Once outside, away from all those people, I broke down completely. I cried like I had never cried in my life. Not even when Robert died did I cry like that, because at least his death was natural, expected. But this betrayal, this cruelty from my own son, was something I never could have imagined. Dorothy, please tell me what happened, Mrs. Henderson said, holding my hand. I told her what I had heard. I told her about Michael's lies, about how he had said it was something urgent about inheritance, when in reality it was a planned celebration with cake and everything. Mrs. Henderson covered her mouth with her hands in shock. Dear Lord, Dorothy. I can't believe Michael would do such a thing. On his father's wake day. What kind of son did I raise, Martha? I asked, using her first name as I had when we were young. What did I do wrong? How could I raise a boy capable of such cruelty? You didn't do anything wrong, Dorothy. You and Robert were wonderful parents. Michael is the one who chose this path. But her words didn't comfort me. Because at that moment I wasn't just dealing with the loss of my husband. I was dealing with the realization that my son, the boy I had carried in my womb, nursed, raised, loved unconditionally for 25 years, was capable of a cruelty I couldn't comprehend. We went back inside because I needed to fulfill my duty as Robert's widow. I needed to stay until the end, even if my son couldn't do the same as Robert's son. The last 2 hours of the wake were torture. Every person who asked about Michael was a reminder of his betrayal. Every condolence I received felt empty because the person who should have been there to support me had chosen to celebrate something else. At 10 o'clock, when the wake officially ended, I was alone except for Mrs. Henderson and Pastor Williams. The funeral director asked if I wanted to spend a few more minutes alone with Robert before they closed the coffin. I approached my husband's coffin one last time. He looked so peaceful, so dignified. I leaned over and whispered in his ear, Robert, our son wasn't here with us today. I don't know where we went wrong, but somehow we failed. I'm sorry, my love. I'm so sorry. Pastor Williams drove me home that night. The house felt emptier than ever. Not just because Robert was gone, but because I had lost my faith in Michael too. I sat in the living room where Robert and I used to watch television together, staring at his empty chair. Around 11 at night, I heard a car in the driveway. It was Michael. He came in through the front door as if nothing had happened. He was smiling, looked relaxed, happy even. When he saw me sitting in the dark living room, his expression changed to one of fake concern. Mom, why are you sitting in the dark? Are you okay? I looked at my son, this man who had abandoned me on the worst day of my life to go to a party, and I felt something die inside me. Something that had been there since the day he was born, something that I thought would never disappear. My unconditional love for him. How was the dinner, Michael? I asked, my voice flat and cold. It was good, Mom. Mrs. Margaret really needed to talk to us about some family matters. I'm sorry it took so long. He was still lying. Even after everything, even looking at my face marked by tears and pain, he continued to lie to me. Michael, sit down, I said. He sat in Robert's chair, and that simple act felt like another betrayal. That was his father's chair, the chair of a man who had just died, and Michael sat in it as if it meant nothing. I know where you were tonight, I said. His face went pale. What do you mean, Mom? I know it wasn't a dinner. I know it was a celebration. I know there was cake. I know you reserved the restaurant room in advance. Michael opened his mouth to say something, but no words came out. He had been caught in his lie. How long have you been planning this party, Michael? Days. Weeks. While your father was dying in this house, were you planning to celebrate something on the day of his wake? Mom, it's not what you think. Then what is it, Michael? Explain to me what it is. Explain to me how my son, the boy I raised with so much love, could leave me alone at his father's wake to go to a party. Michael looked down like a child caught doing something wrong. But he wasn't a child. He was a 25-year-old man who had made a conscious choice to hurt his mother in the worst possible way. It was Sarah's cousin's birthday, he said quietly. They had planned it a long time ago, and Mrs. Margaret said it was important for family unity that we be there. Sarah's cousin's birthday, I repeated, feeling each word like poison in my mouth. You left your father's wake for Sarah's cousin's birthday party. Mom, I know it looks bad, but... Looks bad. I stood up so fast that Michael jumped in the chair. Looks bad? Michael, you abandoned your mother on the day of your father's funeral to go to a birthday party for a cousin of your wife. You lied to me. You lied to everyone at the funeral home. You made me spend the saddest day of my life alone while you were eating cake and celebrating. I didn't want to hurt you, Mom. That's why I said it was about inheritance. You didn't want to hurt me? I laughed, but it was a laugh without joy, without humor. Michael, if you had stabbed me in the heart with a knife, it would have hurt less than what you did today. He tried to get up from the chair, tried to approach me, but I stepped back. Mom, please let me explain. There's nothing to explain, Michael. Today I discovered what kind of man my son really is. Today I discovered that 25 years of love, dedication, and sacrifice meant nothing to you. Today I discovered that when I needed you most, you chose them over me. It's not like that, Mom. I love you. Love. I shook my head. Michael, you don't know what love is. If you knew, you would never have done what you did today. That night I went to bed knowing that I had lost both the men in my life. I had lost Robert to death, which was natural and, in a way, expected. But I had lost Michael to something much worse. I had lost him to his own selfishness, to his own cruelty. But even then, even after all that pain, I still didn't know the whole truth. I still didn't know how deep my son's betrayal went. The worst revelation was still to come, and when I discovered it, I would understand that everything I thought I knew about Michael was a lie. If you're watching this story and you're a parent, leave a comment telling me, would you be able to forgive a son who did this to you? Because at that moment, lying in my empty bed in my empty house, I didn't know if forgiveness was possible. 3 days passed after Robert's burial. 3 days of silence between Michael and me. He had tried to call twice, but I couldn't bear to hear his voice. Every time I thought about what he had done at the wake, I felt sick to my stomach. I was trying to organize Robert's things, to decide what to keep and what to donate. It was a painful task but necessary. Every shirt, every tool, every book brought back memories of our 40 years together. I was going through his nightstand when I found his old cell phone, the one he barely used but kept for emergencies. Robert had never been good with technology. He had that phone for over 3 years but only used it to call me or Michael when he was away from home. I almost threw it in the donation box, but something made me turn it on first. Maybe I wanted to see if there were any photos of us, any messages that could bring me comfort in those dark days. The phone took a while to turn on. When it finally did, I saw there were several unread text messages. My heart jumped, thinking maybe Robert had received some final messages from friends who didn't know he had died. But when I opened the messages, what I saw made my blood freeze. The messages were from Michael. Dozens of messages sent over the past 6 months, during the time Robert was sick and I was taking care of him. I started reading from the oldest ones, and with each message I felt like I was falling into an abyss of pain and disbelief. The first message was from 4 months ago. Dad, I know you're sick and this is hard to talk about, but Sarah and I are worried about our future. We want to buy a house and we were wondering if you could help us with the down payment. Robert had replied, Son, you know your mother and I don't have much saved. Most of our money is going to my treatments. Michael's response made me nauseous. I understand, Dad. But when the time comes, Mom will inherit everything, right? The house, the savings, your pension. She won't need all that money. She could live in a smaller place. I had to sit on the bed because my legs were shaking. My son was already planning how to spend the inheritance while his father was still alive, still fighting for his life. Robert's reply was heartbreaking. Michael, I'm not even dead yet and you're already thinking about money? Your mother took care of me her whole life. Everything I have is hers. But Michael didn't give up. Dad, I'm not saying right away. But in the future, Mom will need help managing everything. Sarah and I could help her. We could even live with her, take care of her. It would be better for everyone. The messages continued for months. Michael constantly bringing up the subject of inheritance, always with the excuse that he wanted to help me, that it would be better for everyone if he managed the money. But the worst message was from just 2 weeks before Robert died. Dad, I've been thinking. When you die, Mom will be very sad and confused. She won't be able to make good decisions about money. Sarah and I have been talking and we think the best thing would be for you to leave everything to me. I promise I'll take care of Mom. She'll never lack anything. Robert's response was firm. Michael, I'm disappointed in you. Your mother is not incompetent. She doesn't need you to manage her life or her money. Everything I have is hers and it will stay that way. Michael's reply revealed the true extent of his selfishness. Dad, you're being unfair. I'm your son. I have a family to support. Mom doesn't need all that money to live alone. And if something happens to her, everything would go to charity or distant relatives. It doesn't make sense. But the message that broke my heart completely was the last one Michael had sent, just 3 days before Robert died. Dad, I know you're not changing your mind about the will. But I want you to know that I'll be the best son in the world to Mom after you're gone. I'll visit her every day, I'll take care of everything she needs. And when she realizes she can trust me completely, maybe she'll decide to share the inheritance with me voluntarily. I dropped the phone on the floor. My whole body was shaking. Everything made sense now. Michael's dedication during Robert's illness, his care in organizing the funeral, his promises to take care of me, it was all calculated. It was all a performance designed to gain my trust so that eventually I would give him Robert's inheritance. But there was still more. I picked up the phone from the floor and continued reading. The next messages were from after Robert's death, sent on the very day of the wake. Dad, I know you can't read this anymore, but I need to write this. I did everything I could to be the perfect son for Mom these past few days. Everyone saw how dedicated I was. Now I just need to keep this up for a few more months, until she's completely dependent on me. And then, the message that revealed everything. I know you wanted me to really take care of Mom, but the truth is I can't. Sarah's family needs us now. Mrs. Margaret has big plans for us and we can't miss these opportunities. But don't worry, I'll still visit Mom regularly, enough to keep her happy and trusting me. The last message was sent at exactly the time Michael was at the birthday party, while I was alone at the wake. Dad, I had to make a difficult choice today. Mrs. Margaret said that if I didn't show up to Cousin Jessica's party today, they would exclude me from the family business. I had to choose between staying at your wake or securing mine and Sarah's future. I think you would understand. Business comes first. I couldn't breathe. I sat there in the bedroom I had shared with Robert for 20 years, holding his phone and realizing that everything I thought I knew about my son was a lie. He hadn't left the wake because of an urgent dinner. He hadn't left because of inheritance issues. He had left because Sarah's family had threatened to exclude him from a business opportunity if he didn't attend a birthday party. My husband's wake was less important to him than a business opportunity. I spent the rest of that day reading and rereading those messages. Each reading revealed new layers of Michael's betrayal. He had seen his father's illness as an opportunity. He had seen my grief as a weakness to be exploited. He had seen our love and trust as tools to get what he wanted. But the most devastating part wasn't just Michael's greed. It was the realization that Robert had died knowing our son's true character. In his final weeks, while I was focused on caring for him and believing we had raised a good son, Robert was dealing with the heartbreak of discovering that Michael only saw us as sources of money. That night I called Michael. When he answered, his voice was cheerful as if nothing had happened. Hi, Mom. I'm so glad you called. I've been worried about you. Michael, I need you to come here. No. We need to talk. Of course, Mom. Is everything okay? You sound strange. Just come. Come alone. An hour later, Michael was sitting in our living room in the same chair where he had lied to me about the birthday party. I sat across from him holding Robert's phone. Michael, I found your father's phone. His face went pale instantly. His phone. I read all the messages you sent him. All of them. Michael tried to speak but no words came out. His mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. I know about the inheritance, Michael. I know that everything you did these past months, all the care, all the attention, all the promises, it was all about money. Mom, I can explain. Explain what? How you saw your father's death as a business opportunity. How you planned to manipulate me into giving you the inheritance. How you left his wake to secure a business deal. Michael stood up and started pacing around the room. Mom, you're taking this the wrong way. Yes, I thought about the future, but that's normal. I have a family to support. Normal. I stood up too, holding the phone. Michael, your father was dying and you were pressuring him to leave me without inheritance. He was suffering and you were already planning how to spend his money. I wasn't going to leave you with nothing, Mom. I would have taken care of you. Like you took care of me at the wake? Like you're taking care of me now by lying to my face. He stopped pacing and looked at me with an expression I had never seen before. It wasn't the face of a son caught in a mistake. It was the face of someone who had been caught in a calculated plan and was angry about being discovered. "Hey, Mom. You want the truth? Yes, I thought about the inheritance. Yes, I made plans. But that doesn't mean I don't love you." "Love?" I laughed, but it was a bitter laugh. "Michael, you don't know what love is. Love doesn't calculate. Love doesn't manipulate. Love doesn't abandon. I never abandoned you. You abandoned me at your father's wake for a business opportunity. You abandoned me when I needed you most because Sarah's family threatened to exclude you from their business." His expression changed again. Now it was surprise mixed with fear. "How do you know about that?" "Because you told your dead father everything in those messages. You wrote that you had to choose between the wake and your future, and you chose your future." Michael sat back down, this time with his head in his hands. For a moment I thought he was going to cry, that he was going to show some regret for what he had done. But when he looked up, his eyes were dry and cold. "Mom, what do you want me to say? That I'm sorry? Fine, I'm sorry. But I can't change what happened." "I don't want your apologies, Michael. Apologies don't heal the wound you opened in my heart. Apologies don't bring back the dignity you took from me at your father's wake. So what do you want?" I looked at my son, this man I had carried in my womb, nursed at my breast, raised with so much love and hope, and I realized I didn't recognize him. The boy I thought I knew never existed. What existed was this selfish, calculating man who saw his own parents as obstacles to his ambitions. "I want you to leave," I said quietly. "What?" "I want you to leave my house. I want you to leave and not come back." "Mom, you can't be serious." "I've never been more serious in my life. I don't want to see you anymore, Michael. I don't want to hear your voice. I don't want to receive your fake visits. I don't want your false concern." He stood up abruptly. "Mom, you're upset. You're not thinking clearly." "I'm thinking more clearly than I've thought in months. For the first time since your father got sick, I'm seeing you for who you really are." Michael started toward the door but stopped and turned to me. "And the inheritance, Mom? Are you going to leave everything to charity just to spite me?" Even in that moment, even when I was expelling him from my house and my life, he was still thinking about money. Even then, his greatest concern was what he would stop receiving, not what he had done to me. "The inheritance was never yours, Michael. It was never yours because you never deserved it. That money is my right. I'm your son." "No," I said, feeling a strange calm take over me. "You stopped being my son the day you left me alone at your father's wake. You stopped being my son when you chose money over family. You stopped being my son when you showed me that everything I believed about you was a lie." Michael left that night, slamming the door behind him. I never saw him again. 6 months have passed since that day. 6 months since I discovered the truth about my son. I've had time to think, to process everything that happened, to understand how I could have been so blind for so many years. People in town ask about Michael. They want to know why he doesn't visit anymore, why he wasn't at Robert's birthday memorial last month. I tell them the truth, that sometimes we discover people are not who we thought they were, not even our own children. I live alone now, but I'm not lonely. I've learned to distinguish between being alone and being lonely. I have my friends, my church, my volunteer work at the school. I have a life that doesn't depend on anyone's false love or calculated care. Sometimes I wonder if Michael thinks about what he lost. Not the inheritance. He never lost the inheritance because it was never his. But he lost something much more valuable. He lost the unconditional love of a mother. He lost the respect of a community that watched him grow up. He lost the chance to be the good man his father hoped he would be. Robert was right when he said Michael would take care of me after he was gone. But not in the way he imagined. Michael taught me to take care of myself. He taught me that I'm stronger than I thought. He taught me that love, to be real, needs to be reciprocal and honest. To you watching this story, to you who are parents, I want to leave a reflection. Sometimes the greatest gift we can give our children is consequences. Sometimes the greatest act of love is saying no, is setting limits, is not accepting unacceptable behavior. I lost a son, but I found myself. I lost an inheritance heir, but I kept my dignity. And if I had to choose again, I would make the same choice. Because no amount of money is worth losing your self-respect. And no family tie is worth accepting cruelty and betrayal. Robert is at peace now, and so am I. And that's what matters. If this story touched your heart, if it made you think about your own family relationships, leave your like and subscribe to the channel. Because true stories like this one need to be told so that other people understand that sometimes the hardest choices are the right ones. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here with me on the hardest day of my life and on the day I found my strength again. May you never need to make the choice I made, but if you do, may you have the courage to choose dignity over convenience, truth over comfort, self-respect over false peace. Good night and may God bless you all.